All right, welcome to another episode of the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the author of Love, Hope, Lyme, What Family Members, Partners, and Friends Who Love a Chronic Lyme Survivor Need to Know. And of course, I'm the host of the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. Thanks for listening. You could find the book on Amazon. I've also made the e-version of the book, Dorothy. It's free for chronic Lyme survivors. So if you're a chronic Lyme survivor, reach out to me via Facebook or LinkedIn, or go to freddiamond.com and I'll send you an e-version, the PDF of the book, Love, Hope, Lyme. Dorothy, I've probably sent out close to 500 copies at this point. So it's very exciting. I want to get it in the hands of everybody who needs to know. I'm excited today on the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. We're going to be talking to Dorothy Leland. She, of course, is the president of LymeDisease.org. She's the co-author of When Your Child Has Lyme Disease. And of course, her blog is Touched by Lyme. And she was also the first person to review Love, Hope, Lyme when it came out. I've been very fortunate to have gotten to know Dorothy when I decided to learn more about Lyme disease and how it was affecting someone in my life. She was very kind to allow me to write some blog articles for LymeDisease.org that has exposed me to so many amazing people. You know, when I wrote the book, I met some amazing leaders like you, Dorothy, in the Lyme community, doctors, medical practitioners, charity directors, and they really helped me understand what Lyme is all about, you particularly. So on the podcast, I'm inviting people like you to share some insights into how you can support those you love. And again, if you're a chronic Lyme survivor, the podcast was created to help you understand some ways that you can let your family support you and get message across about how you needed and how you would like to be supported. So Dorothy, I'm excited to have you here today. People can find every episode where they usually get their podcasts, or they can go to freddiamond.com and click on the Love, Hope, Lyme button. All right, so let's get started today. Dorothy Leland, what are the three things that family members, partners, and friends need to know about what their loved one is going through?
Well, I would say the first thing is that Lyme patients often are not believed. They're not believed by doctors. They're not believed by family members. If they're children, they're not believed by school officials. And that's a huge, it undermines somebody's, their whole sense of self, that they feel like they're completely isolated from the world and nobody believes them. And this comes to this often is because of the screwy way that the medical establishment deals with Lyme disease. There was an awful story in the news just within the last 24 hours about a case where there was a young man in Maine that went to the doctor, was told no, he didn't have Lyme disease, and a few days later he was dead of Lyme carditis. And his family, that actually happened several years ago, but what happened yesterday was the jury awarded a $6.5 million judgment against the hospital and the doctor, for his family. But that's just an example of the fact that he went to the doctor and he apparently had a bullseye rash, and the doctor said in the thing, well, there's a target-shaped rash, but no sign of Lyme disease. Anyway, that's not everything gets to that level, but just in general, people are told that, we went through it with my family. My daughter was 13 when she took ill, and she couldn't walk. We needed a wheelchair to get her around. And the doctors didn't believe her. They said there wasn't, because they tested whatever they tested for. They said she didn't have it, including Lyme disease. We insisted on a test for Lyme disease, and it was negative, because what I didn't understand at the time was it's a lousy test. And so one of the biggest things that Lyme patients are dealing with is the fact that they're not believed by anybody often.
It's interesting. When I was writing my book, Love, Hope, Lyme, I had a sentence which said, anywhere in the country, you may get doctors who aren't familiar with it. And people wrote back to me who reviewed the book. As you know, I had a lot of people reviewing my book. A number of people wrote back and said, even in Connecticut and Maine, You would think that those are two places where it would be known, but it really isn't. I'm kind of curious. Before I ask another question about supporting Lyme survivors, you're the president of LymeDisease.org. You've devoted your life to supporting people with Lyme disease. How did you? I know you mentioned, of course, your child, but how did you get to this point? What brought you to this point where you're doing a blog about Lyme? You've done so much work advocating, educating, helping people. Why do you do what you do?
Well, when I was in the midst of it all, it made me very angry. It made me angry that the system was the way it is, that people were disbelieved, that families were left out. And we're a family that had good health insurance and generally had resources available to us. And yet, that didn't help us in our situation. And it made me angry, and I wanted to do something about it. And since then, it's like I channel my energies into trying to fix the situation. I have after my daughter was out of the wheelchair and generally doing better, I helped found a Lyme support group in Sacramento, California, near where I live. And I helped lead that group for 8 years. And there were many, many people, and I got to hear lots of people from lots of different situations. Before that, I was thinking in terms of my family and, our issues. And I met all these people that had very different issues than we did. But what they had in common was that they were getting, messed up by the system, and the system needed to change. And it just seemed like that's what I was led to do. So I've been involved with it. I started my blog about 12 years ago. And I was a writer before then and was involved in politics and journalism in various ways. And it just seemed like it kind of came together that this was something that I really wanted to do.
I'm just kind of curious. I want to ask you about LymeDisease.org in a second, but you mentioned it's been a number of years since you first got started and you're trying to move the needle, so to speak. Where do you think we are right now? Again, we're doing today's interview in February, actually, of 2023. Where are we as a community? There's some great documentaries that are coming out right now. The Quiet Epidemic, Monster and Me. Where do you think we are, though, from an education? I'll tell you why I'm asking the question. One is, I just became aware I had someone in my life who had chronic Lyme disease. And when something happened, I decided to get more educated. And I bought every book, and I discovered LymeDisease.org, and I discovered you, and I discovered Facebook groups. And it's unbelievable to me that this disease afflicts so many people. So many doctors don't understand. There's no cure per se for chronic Lyme. There's still so much lack of education. So many people have reached out to me and thanked me, someone who just within a year has begun to make some communications. Where do you think we are right now at this moment in time?
Well, there's still a long way to go. But there has been progress in the time that I have been involved. And one thing that I, whenever it was 12 years ago, I don't even remember exactly when it was, I started doing Google alerts for Lyme disease and the various, things related to that. And in the beginning, I would get one or two things a week. And now I get those same Google alerts, and sometimes there's 60 things in a day. And it's not that they're all, good things. Sometimes it's just mentioned in passing, but it never even used to be mentioned in passing. And when I first started trying to find out information for my daughter, and I was doing things, there was like little clues. I found that it had happened a few years prior to that, but I just found it in a Google search that the Washington Post had done something about Amy Tan, the writer Amy Tan of the Joy-Luck Club, and that she, her experience with Lyme disease. And it mentioned that there was a doctor in San Francisco, and it was like, oh, here's something, here's a clue, here's something to help me for. There were, as you know, having a book with Lyme disease, I have a book about Lyme disease. There's lots of books now, some of them better than others. There's lots of books now about Lyme disease. There wasn't back then. And maybe there were one or two, but they weren't generally available. And it wasn't accessible. And then, so a lot of things have changed in that same time period because of the rise of social media. And so, you know, there wasn't Facebook back then. There were some online groups. There was something called LymeNet, which actually still exists, but it's kind of a shadow of its former self. But that was the only place where, and there were some groups that were online Yahoo groups, which don't exist anymore. But that's what you had to do, is you had to find something like that and then ask somebody for some information, just sort of put it out there into the abyss. This was a person you didn't know, but they mentioned something. Can you tell me more about it? And that's how people found doctors. And that's how we found our doctor. And it was just, it's different. That has changed. There is more information available. What hasn't changed is the Infectious Diseases Society of America still just seems to have a death grip on anything that has to do with Lyme disease. Yeah. And the CDC, although the CDC has softened in some minor ways, mostly the CDC is still towing the line that the IDSA puts out. And basically that Lyme, they define Lyme very narrowly. And so, but one thing that is also, because I compile the news for our website, one of the things that I posted yesterday before I heard about this case in Maine was that there's the next stage of this process called LymeX, which is actually a prize for technology companies to develop better tests for Lyme disease, and they give them a bunch of money if they win. And so they'd already done phase 1, and they'd gotten 10 people to 10 organizations, companies that are now going on to the next step to get a better. The idea is to get a better test for Lyme disease, and that presumably that better test, which we assume will be gotten to eventually, might have saved the life of this young man in Maine. Because if you went to the doctor and they could give you a test that said, yes, you have it, you know, then you could treat it. And now there are various tests, but they don't, I mean, almost everybody that I know that's a Lyme patient has had a test that they've tested negative for. Yeah. And then there's other kinds of tests, and there's other ways that doctors can evaluate you and that kind of thing. It's a whole complicated area. But yeah,
I mean, it's interesting, the whole everything about it seems complicated. Yes, I mean, you mentioned CDC and IDSA. I have a friend whose best friend is an infectious disease doctor. And summer 2021, when I decided to start really getting smart about this, to understand what was happening with someone in my life, this friend came back to me and said, oh, I spoke to this particular doctor, and she told me that you do know that chronic Lyme doesn't really exist. And I was like, and this was a sweet person who I've known for a long time, very successful doctor, very fair. And her immediate response was, and then she corrected herself a year ago and said, it's not that it doesn't exist, it's very difficult to test for. So if you're a doctor and you can't prove, what's the single best way that the people who are friends, family, and partners, what's the single best way to support a chronic Lyme survivor?
Well, believe them at the very beginning. That it's obviously everybody's circumstances are different. I would say accept them where they are. Sometimes people are. Things, one of the things that when you asked about what should people know about Lyme disease, and that I hadn't gotten to, is that symptoms wax and wane. And so sometimes It's like somebody is well enough to go out to a movie or whatever, and another time they're not. And some people, including medical professionals, sometimes take that as evidence that they weren't really sick. If that you said you were, you said you couldn't do it, and then now you're doing this. It's kind of like with, even with my daughter when she was first having her issues, it was like she would say, "Oh, I can't do this. It hurts to walk." And then the next day she's out playing with her friends. But then the next day she says it hurts to walk. But symptoms can wax and wane, and they can also migrate. So it can be, one elbow hurts you one day, the other elbow hurts you the next day. It's not that you're faking or you got your story confused. It's that the symptoms migrate. So one of the things that to support somebody is to accept them where they are. If this is a day that they just can't do that thing they promised they were going to do, you accept that and then say, what do you want to do? How can I help you?
So you've dealt with
another thing. Obviously, it depends. There's such a wide variation in symptoms. That the same advice doesn't directly, pertain to everybody. But in general, I'd say people that are really sick, have really serious health problems, they tend to be very isolated. They feel very isolated. And so anything that you can do in a way that's welcome to that person, obviously, if you can watch a video, sit and watch a video with them instead of going out and doing something, or talking to them via FaceTime or texting or whatever works for them. I think an awful lot of it comes down to accepting where they are in whatever, the present moment where they are. How can I help you? And how can I be with you? How can I be your friend? How can we, can we have a laugh together? And that's I think that's what's needed. I think that's what's needed by a lot of people.
So you've spoken with probably at this point, if not tens of thousands of chronic Lyme survivors. What are some things what is like one thing that they say, I wish my partner wouldn't do this, or I wish my family wouldn't do this? Obviously we talked about believe them. So, don't not believe me, forgetting about that. But what else might you hear that we want to get across to the family members, partners, and friends who have a chronic Lyme survivor that they shouldn't be doing, that they might be doing?
Well, some people say, I know exactly what you're feeling when you don't. And so I would say, don't assume that you understand things about their situation. Ask them. And another big one that I hear from people is don't give unasked for advice. One of the things that's almost, just kind of a trite saying is, have you tried yoga? It's that, most people that have been sick for a long time, at least adults, have tried everything. And it's not that you can't, if you're good friends, you could mention something about it, but this all, some people assume, when my daughter was first in the worst of her issues and we did not know it was Lyme disease, we didn't know what was going on. We had a neighbor that I didn't know very well, and he was a very well-intentioned person. He saw me out by the mailbox one day, and he came over and he thrust this thing into my hand that was the name of an acupuncturist in Berkeley, which was like 2 hours away from us. And he said, you absolutely have to go to this person. And it was like he wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I just said, thank you, took it. And the thing is, maybe that would have been the perfect person to go to. I don't know, but we weren't receptive to it at that point. And so sometimes people, out of a good intention on their part, they think, oh, well, if the person only took magnesium supplements, this problem would go away. There's some fellow that I only know from Facebook who posts on our pages all the time, telling anybody that says anything that they have to go vegan. If they just went vegan, their problems will be over. And I mean, I'm not saying anything about for or against the idea of going vegan, but it's just like, that's not, I think people aren't necessarily receptive to that at that point. So that idea of coming like, we know your situation better than you do, and we've got it all figured out. I would say people in general, Lyme patients in general would say, don't do that.
No, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things I discovered was, there's no silver bullet type of a cure, like, oh, if you go vegan or some other type of things that are being proposed out there, that it's such a complex disease, especially at the chronic stage, that the chronic Lyme survivors that I've met, they're trying everything. They're spending all of their days, on on the Facebook groups, or, speaking of that, someone reached out to me and said, Fred, your book is great. You should get it up on Reddit. So I jumped up on Reddit. There's 10,000 people in the /Lyme Reddit conversation. They were asking similar questions, but people I've met, and I've met so many amazing people over the last year and a half, and they've tried everything, or they're wondering, and people are saying, I tried this and I tried that, and it definitely worked. Before I ask you for your final thought, again, we're talking to Dorothy Leland today. She's such a doing so many things to support the Lyme community. Tell us a little bit about LymeDisease.org. One thing that I tell people is, prior to realizing that I needed to learn more, is my mission was to keep this particular person out of stress and understand where the best gluten-free pizza was. And then when I dove deep and bought every book on Lyme disease and joined some of these Facebook groups, I discovered LymeDisease.org and all of these amazing organizations that are doing just everything from raising millions to raising tens of thousands to help people pay for medicine or for a doctor's appointment or something. Give us a little bit of an insight. Tell us a little more. Again, you're the president of LymeDisease.org. Tell us some of your main missions, and then I want to get your final thought. Again, we're talking to Dorothy Leland today.
Okay. Well, we do a number, LymeDisease.org does a number of things, but I would say at the moment they can go into two main categories. And one that I'm largely involved with is communications, that we are a communications hub where we put out information about Lyme disease, and not just about this is what it is and about ticks and that sort of thing, but like I was saying earlier about this case of that there was a large settlement for wrongful death for Lyme disease. And this really grew out of, I was trying to find information. I come from a news background, a journalism background. And when I was in this with my daughter, I was trying to find information about just what was going on. And there was the case, I knew from online groups that there was a case against Dr. Charles Jones in Connecticut at that time. He passed away a year or so ago, but he was he was a hero in the Lyme community, and he was being charged because his license was being questioned because he didn't follow the IDSA guidelines for Lyme disease, which basically is ignore it and don't treat it. But but I digress. And I wanted to know more about it. And I was going online and I was looking with, my Google searches and whatever, and I couldn't find anything about it. Or maybe there would be some article that would just have a couple of lines about it. And so the way that I could find information about it was I would go to LymeNet or some of these other groups, and I'd say, hey, does anybody know anything about, the Charles Jones trial? What's going on? And sometimes it would, and that was how I was getting information. And so later, when I got involved with the organization that I'm now involved with, I said I wanted us to be a forum where people could find out about stuff. And it happened to be about the same time that the Huffington Post was created, and that they had all of these things with blogs. And so it's like, well, why don't we do something like that and have a bunch of blogs? And some of them are news and some of them are opinion pieces, like some of the ones that you wrote. And so it really grew out of that. And we also have a weekly newsletter that we send out that to people that sign up for it, to alert them to the blogs that are on our website. And then as Facebook and Twitter and other things, Instagram came along that we put our information there through those platforms as well. So a very large part of what we do is informing people. We also have a very important research project called My Lyme Data, and it currently has more than 17,000 people enrolled in it. You have to be in the United States. You have been diagnosed with Lyme disease. And other than that, it's that you just get asked, it's big data. You get asked lots of information. And we've partnered with some people at UCLA, with researchers at UCLA. We've partnered with the University of Washington. There are some others where you ask a lot of questions about people, how long have you been sick? Were you aware you were bitten by a tick? What have you tried? What haven't you tried? What's worked well? And those kinds of things. And we have gotten peer-reviewed medical journal articles. I think we're up to 5 articles that have been based on information from the My Lyme Data Registry. And that sort of thing has been done by the CDC and the NIH run registries for all kinds of diseases, cancer, heart disease, that kind of thing, where they have all of these data points about about those diseases. Nobody was doing it for Lyme disease. And so we started it in 2015. And it's an ongoing program. And so I would really encourage anybody that fits that criteria in the United States and has been diagnosed with Lyme disease to join it. And the reality is most of the people that are motivated to do it are still sick. They're looking for answers. Yeah. And we want to help them find answers. But some of the people that have joined it say that they've gotten better. And so we're very interested in that. And at the moment, we're doing a little bit of a push to get people that consider themselves recovered or largely improved to join the registry too, because we want to know what worked for them. Because one of the realities about this is what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for somebody else. So you don't want to that's part of the problem with the CDC and the IDSA is they say, okay, you can do this little tiny bit of treatment. But you can't do anything else. Absolutely. Don't you dare do anything else. And the reality is that some of these other treatments really help people. And we want to know that so that we can spread the word through our communications channels.
So once again, I just want to acknowledge LymeDisease.org. I get your newsletter every day or your emails, and obviously track you on Facebook, and the quality of the information that you're presenting is the best in the industry, and it's so helpful. And I also want to acknowledge you for thanking you for giving me the opportunity. I've as most people know here, I do a sales podcast, and I started every 10 shows or so, I'll interview somebody who has overcome Lyme disease to have a successful career in sales. I like to say I'm the only person on the planet doing blogs or articles on the convergence of sales performance and Lyme disease awareness. And you very kindly have allowed me to repurpose those for your people. And some have gotten 1,000, interactions. And I also want to acknowledge you as well. The work that you do tirelessly to educate the marketplace. And it's not just the people with Lyme. The bigger challenge is educating people who don't have Lyme, educating the rest of the medical profession about the disease and treatments and how patients need to be cared for is remarkable. So I just want to acknowledge you for all the ways through your blog, through your involvement in the community, through the book that you've written, and all those other things that you've done to really make a difference for hundreds of thousands of people. So I want to applaud you for that. Again, we talked today with Dorothy Leland on the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. Dorothy, give us one final thought, one final tip to the family members, partners, and friends who love a chronic Lyme survivor.
Well, I would say you mentioned it earlier. There is a movie that has recently come out called The Quiet Epidemic, and it currently has been showing in limited release, but my understanding is in a few months it's going to be available for streaming. And I did see it. It's excellent. I think everybody ought to go see that, ought to see it whenever they can, and to get a clearer understanding of what their loved ones are going through.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I saw it as well. And I definitely recommend that people see it. I know that they are beginning to, I think starting in March, whenever that's going to be spread throughout. All right. Once again, my name is Fred Diamond. This is the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. I want to thank Dorothy Leland for being on today's show.
Thank you.